Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for staying with us until the end of Connect 2026. It's been great to connect with some familiar faces, I can see them all around me, and some new faces. Over the past 2 days, you've been deep in all things Optimove and positionless marketing, and we're here to help bring it all together. Over the past decade, CRM teams have become more sophisticated than ever. There's more channels, more data, there's agentic AI. Yet execution is still slower than it should be. Campaign backlogs are long. Marketers are still spending too much time coordinating between data, creative, channels, and multiple other teams. I'm David Hardy, VP of our professional services team at Optimove. And what I see often across CRM organizations is this. Technology is advancing quickly, but the way we operate around it is evolving more slowly.
And I'm Paul O'Shea, Vice President of Customer Success, EMEA. And I probably have the best job at Optimove because I get to talk directly with CRM teams and CRM leaders directly every day. And what we see is clear. The teams that are moving fastest, the teams that are personalizing at scale, and the teams that start with the customer aren't structured in a traditional way. They don't operate in silos. They operate as positionless marketers.
And today, we're going to show you what that actually looks like in practice, how technology can collapse silos, how roles can evolve, and how Optimove's 3 powers, data, optimization, and creative, I remembered, enable a new operating model for CRM, not as a concept, but as a working reality.
So why the shift toward positionless? Well, as many of you can imagine, the answer lies with the customer. I think we can all agree that consumer expectations are evolving far faster than what traditional structures can support. As you can see here, the challenge with a lot of organizations that we work with are, they still have a lot of siloed teams, they still have a lot of fragmented legacy technology, and this is compounded by organizational bureaucracy, bottlenecks, and overloaded processes that ultimately prevent you from moving with speed, agility, and ultimately customer centricity. Well, on the right, we can see with advances in AI, as we've spoken about at length, unified customer data, and creative automation, we are moving to a new model where the customer is at the heart of everything we do, and we call this positionless marketing.
So why does the positionless marketer matter now? Well, 2 forces are colliding. There's external market pressure, and there's internal operational constraints. So let's start with those external forces. AI is now agentic. It can act, decide, and optimize. Marketers can become strategists that are directing intelligent systems. At the same time, competition is intensifying. Generic marketing is dead. Deep personalization is the only way to win. Consumers are demanding it. On top of that, regulation and taxation and general economic pressure are squeezing margins. You need to all do more with less. Then when we look at internal operational constraints, we have legacy structures. Insight, creative, execution, and optimization still sit in disparate, separate teams. Campaigns are sitting in queues, data's waiting on analysts, creative waits on designers. Tests can take weeks. The gap between the two, what the market demands and how teams are structured, that's exactly where positionless comes in. This isn't just about new tech, it's about rethinking how marketing work gets done.
So let's talk about the benefits of positionless marketing. Well, the first is just pure speed. The ability to launch campaigns in a matter of hours, not weeks or months. The secondary speed benefit you get, though, is decision-making, with fewer stakeholders involved in getting life cycles and getting campaigns out the door. The second is productivity, higher campaign output. One person can now deliver the same campaign volume as what a traditional CRM team of 5 to 7 people can do. So your ability to scale is unlocked. Third, personalization depth. The ability to deliver individualized experiences at scale with minimal manual effort is a game changer. And lastly, your most valuable asset, your first-party data. The ability to unlock this is one of the 4th benefit, and all of these benefits together combine to help you drive greater revenue.
And below the line, there's 3 clear benefits. Headcount efficiency. This isn't about cutting people, it's about empowering them to do more. Tech stack consolidation, CDPs, ESPs, decisioning engines, all are coming into one platform. Less friction, fewer handoffs, better customer experience. And finally, speed to market. In a competitive market, getting campaigns, offers, and iterations out faster is a massive competitive advantage.
So how do we define the positionless marketer? Well, whether you're hiring for this role or you're aspiring to become a positionless marketer, these would be the 6 key traits that would be important in the role. Now, these will be very familiar with all of you in the room. Now, I was speaking to one of my clients earlier today, and she is a one-person CRM individual. So in many ways, she is a de facto positionless marketer automatically. But when we look at clients of different sizes and scale, and some of our enterprise organizations, these 6 roles can be discrete teams. And this is where we see the bottlenecks, the processes, the silos. So the opportunity for positionless is to gradually expand your comfort in terms of understanding these critical areas of competency within the CRM role. But I want to add 3 additional things, which are 3 traits that I've observed having conversations with a lot of my customers in the last number of weeks in the build-up to this session. And there's 3 things that they kind of shared with me. The first is the individual has a growth mindset. So people who want to be positionless are keen to develop their professional career, develop themselves within organizations. Secondly, they want a greater purview. They actually want to take on more responsibility, and they want to step into that opportunity and take ownership for their expanded responsibilities. And the third one is they want to operate in agile environments. So they don't want to be impacted by bureaucracy or processes that slow them down. So they want to operate at the speed of the customer.
So how does Optimove enable the positionless marketer? Well, Optimove is built around 3 foundational powers that cover the full CRM lifecycle, from campaign ideation right through to campaign execution. So first, data power. Data power unifies customer and transactional data and uncovers actionable insights. Capabilities include a single customer view, predictive segmentation, AI-driven insights, and self-serve data ingestion. No BI dependency. Any marketer can access deep intelligence instantly. Secondly, optimization power. Optimization power is AI-driven orchestration and decisioning. Think AI-powered journey decisioning, AI-powered offer optimization, send time optimization, and content variant decisioning. Marketers can focus on strategy while AI handles operational complexity. Thirdly, creative power. Rapid, scalable personalization. Think prompt to template, dynamic personalization, and automated content variation. Less designer dependency, governance is maintained, and speed to market becomes a commodity. So I'm going to walk you through a short demo. The scenario is this. This is a black screen. It is going to turn into a demo. I'm going to walk you through this scenario. The CMO sees that churn is increasing. It's asking their CRM team, is it increasing? Why is it increasing? And what are we doing about it? This is probably a common scenario. So first off, data power. I go to my dashboard and I can confirm that churn, yes, is rising. But I need to dig a little bit deeper. So I can go into our Migration Explorer report. Here, I can see that 77% of new customers will churn before they reach the active lifecycle. I can go a bit deeper, and I can see with that purple red line that that churn trend is increasing over time. I can dig deeper even further. If I go to our cohort reports, I can see that survival rates are deteriorating in recent cohorts. So, as a CRM marketer with the data power, my conclusion is clear. Acquisition quality has declined over time. No analyst was needed, no waiting. But what can I do about it? I can optimize. So, with my optimization power, I go to AI Decisioning Studio. Here, I can consolidate my new journey campaigns all into one group. As I do that, I can see that I'm currently only utilizing 8% of optimization available to me. This is massively underutilized. So, as I dig in a little bit deeper, I can add various elements here that are going to optimize this campaign. Firstly, I look at send time optimization. Here I can choose the channels and the segments, and I can make sure that customers are getting the messages at the right time for them. Secondly, I go to AI offer decisioning. Here I can add multiple welcome variants, bonus variants within the welcome journey. Here you can see me adding a welcome bonus at 10%, and I can add a second action, a welcome bonus at 15%. And if you've seen some of the other sessions around generosity optimization, you'll know now that AI is deciding which is the right offer for the right customer to make sure that they will convert. So now I have my optimization benefit. AI is continuously deciding who gets what offer and when. Next up, creative power. So I go to look at my templates. Looks pretty solid, looks pretty good. However, there's zero personalization. With my optimization power, I can go in, I can utilize data connections and liquid code, definitely terms that I've used more in the last 12 months than I ever thought I would. I can use these capabilities to add in personalized elements across this template. I can add a personalized hero message. I can add clear tier-based messaging. I can add in real-time win details for my customer segments. I can even add dynamic sports events that are coming up based on product affinity of different customer segments. So one template turns into thousands of variants. This is true personalization at scale. What you've seen here is in a single workflow how a CRM marketer can diagnose a challenge with data, they can improve with optimization, and they can elevate with creative. That's the full cycle, one marketer, AI in the loop. So you've seen how Optimove can support the positionless marketer, but how can we fit positionless marketing within your organization? We know that operating models across our customers are different. You might be an SMB business with a lean team. That might be one or two generalists that cover the full cycle, from campaign ideation through to campaign execution. Or you might be an enterprise organization where you have centers of excellence, regional pods, a shared CRM infrastructure. Introducing positionless is not about introducing headcount reduction. It's about thinking about how decisions can move faster in your organization. In positionless organizations, decisions sit closer to execution. That proximity creates speed, it creates adaptability, ultimately advantage. So let's dig into two models in a bit more detail. First, the SMB model. By definition, a lot smaller than an enterprise organization. You may have one or two generalists within this organization that are doing everything, as Paul described. There's no specific BI team, there's no creative queue, there's no channel silos. One person can carry that whole engine. But that's the exact constraint that used to cap performance. Without the right technology in place, campaign iterations were slow. Today, what used to take 2 weeks, exporting data, analyzing that data, building insights, building campaigns, QAing campaigns, launching those campaigns, reporting on those campaigns, getting insights back, this can now happen within a day. This is the purest expression of positionless. The real advantage here is velocity. When manual execution is freed up, small teams can think bigger and act smarter. But what if you're a multi-product, multi-region, multi-brand organization? Complexity can multiply here. Compliance teams, trading teams, product teams, CRM teams, each have their own mandates. In this traditional model, trading teams are dictating which offers they want to go to their customer base. Regional teams have their own KPIs that they're trying to achieve. You have creative teams that are creating bottlenecks, BI teams that are trying to decide what the lifecycle model, lifecycle stages should look like. Positionless at scale can look different to that. Governance can still exist. Centers of excellence can still set the standards. Guardrails can still remain. But strategy can move much closer to execution. Commercial teams can still define their inventory. They can still define the promotions and the bonuses they want their customers to get. But AI can match the right offer to the right customer. Regional pods can still operate autonomously, but with governance. You've seen how one template can be created across multiple variants. And CRM can shift from product-led to customer-led. Positionless at scale doesn't remove structure. It removes the friction between the decision and the action.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the shift to positionless, but in our client's words. So over the last number of weeks, I've been interviewing some of the clients, some of them in the room. They did not want to be named, they're very modest, but wanted to understand from them, in their words, what the benefits they've experienced from transitioning to positionless. So we've talked about what positionless is, the motivation, why now, some of the benefits, but I really wanted to try to share some stories with you of actual customers that will hopefully inspire you to also begin your journey towards positionless. So I'm going to take a couple of examples with a couple of narratives. So this is one of our US clients, and I was asking him about the benefits he's observed and he's felt from transitioning to a positionless structure. And the theme of this example, there's 4 quotes on here, is from silos to seamless, because I think it perfectly encapsulates moving from a siloed, different team environment to one where there's no production line, he has full positionless, and has all the superpowers available to him. So you can see the first quote is about a typical day where he has greater flexibility, but first and foremost, less external support required. So he is more autonomous, more empowered. Next step, he has creative power. So they have understood that they need to have a repository of pre-approved with brand guidelines available for any immediate campaign they would need to send. There's no briefing, no external agency, no waiting. And I don't think anyone likes waiting. We understood that yesterday. Thirdly, he has data power. He has the ability to dive into analytics. And what I like about this individual example is he's talking about modifying a real-time event trigger. He's thinking about how can I optimize the moment that matters with your customers. They're either in the app, they're on the website, they're engaging with your brand, and he's trying to figure out what I can change to this event to get a better outcome for himself and for his business. Truly real time, meeting the customer in the moment. And the last quote is about the flexibility, and the key word for me here is time. The time that he is getting back for himself in his role and for the organization. So he is ultimately far more effective, far more efficient in role. So I think this is a brilliant summary of the end-to-end transition of moving from a solid environment where it's based around role definition to one that is based on outcome definition. The second one is removing bottlenecks. Now, I had to make a mental note to remind myself about a good friend Mark's presentation from yesterday from Lottoland. And I'm not sure if many of you here were in the room, but Mark put up this fantastic diagram of the architecture that was in his organization when he took his role. He called it the spaghetti diagram, and I hope many of you in the room were here to see, and you saw it, and you felt the same nervousness and trauma that I did, because I want to speak to a topic that we call technical debt, and I want to use it as an analogy. So most of you, I hope, in the room are familiar with the concept, tech debt, the accrual over many years of technology, software that met a purpose at a certain point in time, but may not suit the needs of the modern consumer or the modern requirements. And so when he showed that diagram, I started to think about the processes that were required in that organization to support that tech stack and support their operational processes. And I was looking around for a defibrillator. I kid you not, I got so nervous. Because what I want to talk about is the process that you also have to address when you transition to a positionless environment. It's not just about the hardware, the software, it's about the processes that complement it, and they have to change. And this quote from one of our enterprise clients in EMEA, I think sums it up quite well, because they had to take a very cold, hard look at themselves and say, are the processes and the ways of working we have today allowing us to operate with speed or hindering us from operating with speed? And he acknowledged that they used to have quite long internal SLAs, lots of internal sprints, lots of internal briefing, and he even acknowledged they were probably too long, and they were taking too long. Campaigns for them would take months, not weeks, not hours to launch. And I just love his quote that he shared on this conversation I had with him, that now that he's positionless, I can do whatever I need, whatever I want, whenever I want. And I want all of you to be saying the same thing next time I meet you at Connect 2027, okay? Inspirational stuff. But what this does, removing the silos, removing the bottlenecks, is it creates the space for agility. And agility in this case is really about moving from a reactive state to a proactive state, where you are more nimble, more agile to make the changes required for the opportunity that is presented to you, for a customer friction point that you're encountering. You just become more dynamic, and you can meet the customer when they need you. So again, he can just operate far more effectively, far more rapidly. Key benefit. Now, I was also curious about how ideation to execution happened in this positionless world. So this, again, was the US client describing the process. And it is traditionally similar. However, it's done by one individual. So obviously, you start with an insight. He describes like finding a why, having a look at some customer journey that doesn't seem to be performing as well as it should do. So execution is about building and testing a hypothesis against the KPI that he wants to move the needle on. So he builds his campaign, builds his target group, builds its audience, schedules the campaign. But then what I love is after quick QA, which I think many of you in the room would love, being able to do quick QA on your campaigns, he talks about he derived insight from looking at data, data power, data literacy. But the test in itself is going to generate more information for him and his business about what is actually effective. So this creates the flywheel effect, or the infinity loop of continuous learning. One of the other key benefits of, again, being positionless with the Optimove technology. Now, obviously, all organizations, and we have quite a mix of companies in the room today that are either smaller organizations, mid-size, and large. And this is one of the larger enterprise clients, again, I was speaking about. And what they recognized very quickly was they had to say, if we are going to go positionless with all the changes and the impacts to the organization, they first needed to standardize, automate, and optimize. And I'll tell you why. This client, multi-market, multi-brand, multi-product, and if you take any life cycle journey, let's call it the early life journey, imagine they had 10 to 20 variations of the same journey. And if you asked any local market, was theirs the best? Yes, it damn well was. But was it truly? They did not know, because they had so many permutations, there was no way to really fairly compare, was it optimal? So one of the first things they did was say, what is best practice? We should know this. What is the best practice structure for an early life cycle journey? And we need to then roll that out to all the markets, but allow for localization as needed, because you have to be obviously cater to the local market and the local teams. But the standardization alone just allowed you to declutter your platform. It created some space, and it created the ability for cross-market comparability in terms of which markets are over underperforming in the specific journey. Now imagine doing this for every single life cycle that you have. But then secondly is the automation benefit, because once you create the standardization, fewer campaigns, you automate, what do you create? You create space. Space and time for the CRM team to then do what you want them to be doing. Optimizing. Can we do better next week, next month, what we did last week, last month? Because ultimately, you want to make sure that you're protecting your customer and maximizing the value from every opportunity you get to engage with them. Now, this one, the next one, I feel is very, very important, because I was asking him, like, what did you discover as part of the transition that you didn't quite anticipate? And one of the interesting ones he shared was this idea of we can't let our standards drop. So again, in a pre-positionless world, they would have had a production line of individuals, everyone doing a discrete task, everyone has a checklist. Did I do mine? Yes, I do it every day. I know by the back of my heart, and here, pass it to the next person, they do their piece. So what they realized was they cannot afford to have the quality of their output, the campaign that actually does get sent to their end customer, deteriorate in quality. So they just needed to do a comprehensive exercise to consolidate the checklist that they would have had, but you do end up trimming it down because there might have been some excess checks that were in the process before. You consolidate a master core checklist for this new individual to follow, because what is a little bit daunting for people moving into positionless is you may have to get involved in a task or area that is maybe less familiar for you. But by having a structured checklist, and over time, they become very capable at ensuring that what gets finally sent for approval to their manager has actually met the minimum quality standards or key regulation checkpoints that need to happen for every campaign. So again, a critical learning that I took away from the conversation. But I'm going to wrap up with the concept of growth, and I spoke about this earlier when I mentioned one of the traits of a positionless individual is someone who does want to develop themselves professionally and have a growth mindset. And one of the things that I like about this quote, and I dare to say that I hope many of you, I worry many of you might actually empathize with the quote here, because in a production line world where you have a siloed, discrete activity or role to complete, he describes it having a little bit of monotony in his pre-positionless world, because he felt he could do more. And by the way, he or she could do more, but they did not have the opportunity. They had to watch other individuals in their organization actually do different parts of the campaign execution, and they felt they had the power. They had the agency to do more, and they wanted to contribute more. So I think this was, for me, quite inspirational in terms of how he's benefiting as an individual, and it's one of the other key takeaways I took from these interviews. All of this to say that I think I wanted to bring the voice, even though many of my customers are here today, voice of the customer to the conversation and share with you tangible benefits that they're experiencing. And hopefully these are inspirational for you, that you can also take away and consider starting your positionless journey.
Thanks, Paul. As always, relentlessly the voice of the customer. So we've shown you what's changing now in CRM, but what about the future? What are CRM organizations going to look like in 3 to 5 years from now? Well, my teams are already building agentic solutions. They're changing day by day. Tasks that took days now take minutes. Operational tasks are being replaced by AI co-pilots. Humans can now shift their energy to strategy and creativity. Teams can get smaller. Experience will be concentrated. What disappears is manual campaign builds, channel-specific owners, manual segmentation. And what will emerge is the positionless AI augmented strategist. Job titles might be business intent owners, decision architects, AI stewards, experienced strategists. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we know it's changing. We look forward to continuing this conversation with you outside in the hall, and I welcome any of you to challenge our predictions.
So thank you very much for your attention. David and I hope you feel inspired and energized about the topic of positionless marketing, operating around outcomes, not roles. And we hope you've taken away a lot of insights that you can potentially take home to your organizations and to help you continue to put the customer at the heart of everything you do. So please do not go anywhere. I'm going to pass you over now to Mosh Demery for the closing remarks of the session. Thank you very much.